Hey everybody, welcome to the Blendr Report, where news meets rational thinking. I'm your host, Jonathan Harvey. This is your co-host, Liam DeBoer. Liam, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to be chatting about the Liberals putting forth a record-breaking $78.3 billion deficit, Mark Carney's government quietly advancing the digital ID agenda, and the cult of denial that keeps Canada broken. All right, let's get started. First story for the day, we've got Carney's budget, a $78 billion deficit, $90 billion in new spending, and a $1 trillion fantasy. Mark Carney's first federal budget puts forth a massive $78.3 billion deficit, the largest outside the pandemic years. Framed as a growth and investment strategy, it promises $90 billion in new spending to leverage $1 trillion in total investments, while trimming 40,000 public service jobs by 2029 under a $60 billion expenditure review. Major outlays include $12 billion for defense and trade resilience, $10 billion for affordability and housing, $13 billion for a new Build Canada Homes Agency, aka more bureaucracy, and $2 billion for small nuclear reactors. Despite pledges of fiscal discipline, Ottawa expects the debt to GDP ratio to climb before stabilizing. Supporters see a bold pivot toward industrial policy. Critics call it another cycle of overspending wrapped in optimistic projections. Whether growth materializes or Canadians feel good about it will determine if Carney's budget becomes a recovery blueprint or another costly experiment. So, can investment-driven growth realistically offset a $78 billion deficit?
I mean, in reality, it should be able to, but the thing is, it's government spending and government debt. And so if history tells us anything, no. It's just only going to get worse. I made the joke the other day. I'm like, I hope that $1 trillion fantasy starts coming true very soon. Otherwise, they're going to be printing money in 6 months. And that's where we're likely to land, right? That's sort of their safety net that these people have. They don't have accountability and they've got a built-in safety net. Right? That's exactly how this works. Now, when you kind of rip through the budget a little bit and we just sort of look at some of the line items. Well, actually, you know what I'll say first? No other parties supporting this right now. No one else. So that's a really bad sign when you've got a budget here that you're telling Canada is going to fix the country and everyone's going to do better and blah, 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 blah. No one's supporting it. Not even for political favor. You know, like, here's a point of leverage. If you're a political party, you have this point of leverage. They hop in all the time, right? So these are confidence votes that are coming up right now. Now, the first one, they passed the confidence vote yesterday, but that was an argument between the Bloc and the Conservatives. That's all that was. So no party is outright supporting this at a time when they could leverage the Liberals significantly right now. Any one of them could, right? So that's actually how bad the budget is. That's what this tells you, that even politicians that are in it for power and profit are not even willing to leverage on this point. That's how bad they think it is. That's pretty alarming for me. When you look at some of the spending, though, the only things I really agree with, if I'm being honest with you, and I still don't think it'll be efficient, is the increased military spending. And I don't have a huge problem with the nuclear spending if they do it properly and it invests into energy. Because I think that those are like, okay, that's fine. We're moving in the right direction. But the housing accelerator stuff, like you and I have gone over this before, and I did videos on this ages ago. The CMHC, which is a Crown Corp, which is the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. So they basically, they're government-funded organization that are in charge of building homes. One specific project, and I understand I'm cherry picking here, but go look at any one of them you want. One specific project, they were supposed to build 600 and some odd homes, 600 and I don't know, like 50 some odd homes. They built 12.
Yeah, it's crazy how inefficient they are.
And they all got bonuses.
Yeah.
And they all got bonuses. So you look at this, you go, oh, so another tens of billions more going into you guys building housing. This is a problem because it's inefficient. And like you said, it's a bureaucratic black hole. That's where a lot of this is going to go. And then he goes, oh, well, we're going to cut this size of government. We're going to reduce it by 40,000. Everyone goes, that's amazing. Except they're going to do it over 5 years. And they're actually just going to let people moonlight and retire. Right. So they're not actually cutting anything. They're just not filling positions. So they're allowing this bureaucracy to sit still. So what he's doing is lying to the people, saying, well, I'm making these cuts. It's like, no, you're not. You're waiting for people to retire. Then you're not replacing them because you don't need them anyway. But even saying that, I know today in 2025 that I don't need these 40,000 people. So I'm just going to let them retire. And not only do you know that today, you know our population is going to increase by another 5 to 7 million in that time. And you still know that you don't need these people. This is not good governance. This is bullshit. You know, and I found that the entire outlay of this budget was pretty much bullshit.
Well, that is what's funny, especially about the 40,000 public service jobs being cut by 2029, right? Yeah, they're just letting them phase out. Also, if you make the point that we don't need to rehire for this position in 2029 when people leave them, then what you're admitting is that this position is currently unnecessary.
And yes, and when you look at government workers, you think of government worker per populace, like per population, right? And so you're telling me now, when you know the population is going to increase by more than 10%, you still don't already, you don't even need them then?
Yeah.
So how many more people, how much more bureaucratic nonsense and overlap do we have in these people's jobs? This is insane.
Well, and that's, and they're saying that it's expected to save $13 billion annually by them not rehiring for those positions. So what you're saying is that actually for the next roughly 4 years, we're going to waste over $50 billion
yes.
on these
and
positions.
Did you see how it was framed? And this is how much we're going to save because of it, guys. It's a lot of doublespeak. It's a lot of nonsense, man. That's kind of where we're landing. Like, I made the argument the other day that if you see a very, very minor change in interest rates, it's very likely that our federal interest payments will outpace our federal health payments. That's starting now. So that's like their biggest expense. Well, now it's going to become servicing debt. So now you look at how that's basically parallel to the United States now. Dangerous position for us because we don't have the economic engine. So that's the other thing I would want to talk about. He talks about these growth strategies and how he's going to make $1 trillion in the economy.
How?
This exactly, yeah. Like, again, it's like crickets. I go, you guys have nothing in place that shows me that that's viably going to happen. You're bringing in a lot of immigrants that don't have a lot to offer society. They're taking low to medium wage jobs. You're not leveraging our natural resources effectively. You're essentially losing all of the AI IP that we're developing to the US. What are you doing to make this $1 trillion? What's your plan here? There's nothing in place. So you look at this and basically what I see is a manipulative approach to adding more debt to the Canadian taxpayer and no real strategy to get us out of this hole. So I think we're just worse off. That's what this feels like to me. And I think that Carney and the media have done a good job of putting lipstick on a pig.
Well, and you look at this as well. Okay, so just days ago, Blacklock's reporter said that for the third time in 4 years, the federal government is raising the national debt ceiling. So this means that they can just pile more deficits on in the future, right? And so they want to grant themselves permission to borrow up to $2.54 trillion, an increase of nearly 20% over the current limit. So when you take into consideration that Canada's GDP is $3.16 trillion, so we're quickly reaching a debt limit, which is akin to our annual economic activity. And so, like, even if, these numbers are so massive, like trillions of dollars, right? That people, your brain can't really actually comprehend that number.
Elon Musk's will be able to.
Yeah.
You see that? They passed his pay package?
Yeah.
Love
that's
it.
crazy.
No, because look.
I mean, like, it's crazy that somebody's getting a $1 trillion pay package.
Well, he's got to meet a lot of high threshold things, which are going to be challenging to meet. But also, I know this is offshoot, but I find it interesting. Also, if they did not give him this money, he would just go take the tech somewhere else. Tesla's about to skyrocket again. And if they weren't giving him the control and the cash flow here, he was going to just do it somewhere else. It made sense to me. Anyway.
No, I'm not saying it's a crazy decision to give him that.
It's just crazy that
you're at a point now where
yeah.
compensation packages are in trillions. Anyways, back to this is that, okay, if you put this into, say, normal life circumstances, this is the equivalent of, say, a family racking up, like, let's say you have $100,000 is what your family makes, just for a round number. This is the equivalent of you having $80,000, $90,000 on your credit limit and maxing it out, taking out more credit cards and saying that this spending on your credit limit is what's actually going to decrease your debt over the time period. Yes. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And at least if you could at least rationalize it if the question was, okay, we're taking out, say, an extra $10,000 in order to put it into our business or start a new business that is surefire. But you look at everything that the Canadian government is doing, they're not doing that. They're taking $10,000 out to fund more social programs, more foreign aid, this, that, blah, 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 sustainable energy development, all of these things which are economic holes in your bucket.
Yeah, like you can call them, like he has this capital versus operating expense shift that he's doing. But the thing is, these capital expenses aren't generating significant revenue. So even though he's saying this, it's like, okay, show me the money that they're making, because government makes their money off of tax revenue. Basically, that's their primary. So It's like he does not have a big plan in place here for this to make any sense. My point in saying that is, to your analogy, if a family goes, okay, look, we're this is all we're making, but here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take 20,000. Yes, we're gonna be leveraged to the hill. We got nothing left, but I'm putting it into an asset that's gonna increase our revenue by 40,000. I would say, okay, now you're onto something. Let's talk about this. They don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have, well, here's what we're doing though. We're not only going to invest this money, like they're saying, well, it's going to bring this to the economy and this is what's going to happen and blah, blah, blah. Okay. First of all, I don't buy it. The government's never really been historically successful when they have these types of pursuits. I don't think Carney's the guy to make that happen. I don't think he's that brilliant. Second of all, what does that translate to for the government? That's the important thing here as they continue spending this money. How does that translate to revenue for them? And now you got two dead ends. That's exactly what's happening here.
Right. And you're just going to see, I mean, we're seeing capital fly out of this country. But then this is what's really interesting that's coming down the pike at the exact same time as this massive deficit spending. And when you're saying we're going to invest in the country, is that you've got these land rulings happening in places like BC, which again, if that sets the precedent, if that ruling in Richmond doesn't get overturned where they gave the Aboriginal title over Richmond, BC, one of Canada's most densely populated cities. And like, I mean, you're already seeing that with a guy saying he couldn't get his mortgage renewed.
Yeah.
And I heard a lot of people say, well, it's 50 years. Why does he still have a mortgage? It's for farmland. It's a massive mortgage.
That's also not valid. That's not a valid.
And yeah, even if, but you look at this, so you go, okay, you have, like, what do you think that sends to all international investors, that message? Oh. I could sink $1 billion into an industrial base in a major Canadian city, and next year they could hand it over to an Aboriginal title.
Yes.
Get out of here. So like all of this investment that they talk about too, when you pair it with the simultaneous policies that they're putting in place that are a direct threat to all capital.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Well, also, like, let's see, how much money did they give Stellantis? $13 billion?
Something like that.
Where are they putting their plant? In the US?
Yeah.
Now they're like, well, we're going to review this. You're going to review the $13 billion you gave them? So you have no legal course of action to do anything here whatsoever. And I know people are going to say, well, they didn't give them all the money. Yeah, but they gave them a chunk. Fuck off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're in this situation where it's like, you're paying companies to come to Canada. They're like, nah, I'll see you later. So it's
and too, okay, last thing on the budget front, you know, a large portion of that deficit spending and that new spending was for things like trade tariffs and economic resilience and temporary EI measures to offset US tariffs. That is the equivalent of plugging in electrical, like, extension cord into itself and thinking you're going to generate power. Like okay, we're going to take, you know, you look at Joe Carson's diagnosis red tape number where he analyzed all the different levels of government and when money actually, you know, by the time it gets collected to the CRA and it actually gets down into these programs, you're looking at about a 40% waste. 40 cents of every dollar just gets lost on bureaucratic bloat and administrative costs.
Sure.
And so, okay, our economic plan for as this economy is shrinking and struggling is to take dollars out of it and then lose 40 cents of it in our hands and put 60 cents back into the economy. And this is
going to be the solution.
Right.
It's to your point earlier about saying the family that's got all the debt. This is just like more consumer debt. That's all it is. You're not actually solving any problems. You're not adding any asset value to generate more revenue. You're just racking up liability debt.
Actually, a great analogy with that is, okay, if this is the family, they're taking out more credit card debt to pay credit card debt. It's not even like it's going to something that's more advantageous in the future.
Yay, Canada.
At this point, if something doesn't turn around, I think you're just going to see Canada slide into an Argentinian inflation death spiral.
Well, we're just going to print more money.
Yeah.
That's all we're going to do.
And that's what they did. That's where they got to. All right, moving on to our next story. We've got Mark Carney's government quietly advances the digital ID agenda. Ottawa's new Digital Benefits Delivery Modernization Program is being framed as a step towards modern and efficient government services, but it marks a deeper shift towards centralized digital control. The plan would merge identification for employment insurance, old age security, and other benefits into one digital identity, effectively linking financial, medical, and personal data under state management. Though officials insist participation will be voluntary and privacy protected, past examples like pandemic-era cell phone tracking show that government overreach isn't an exception, it's a pattern. With similar systems emerging globally, critics warn Canada is building the infrastructure for a short form of digital authoritarianism. By pairing convenience with compliance, the government risks normalizing surveillance under the guise of progress. History suggests freedom is rarely taken, it's surrendered in small, easy steps. The real question isn't if this system could be abused, but when. So is Canada's digital ID plan about efficiency or control?
So what's interesting is it is actually both, right? And this is how they catch people. There is a convenience factor involved. If there wasn't, they'd have no hook, right? So there is actually a convenience factor. However, it's a very dangerous weapon, right? So I don't know if you saw this yet, but they are tying it now to certain government programs. So now it's like if you want to collect unemployment insurance and something else like welfare and maybe one other one, you got to use the system. Mm-hmm. So that's where they're going now. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, there's the first one. That's the first step. Everything. So how this works is they implement and they make it mandatory. And then what they do is they just continue to lengthen what is mandatory. It just gets like more steps and more things. So it's like, eventually it'll be like, oh, you have a tax return? Would you like it?
Yeah.
Great. Get a digital ID. And then what they'll do is they'll phase out, and the provinces are in lockstep. Even Alberta is playing with the same idea. Oh, your health card expired? Great, they're digital now. And people go, that's convenient, that's fine. Your license expired, you got to use this. But it's not about that. It's like, oh, you didn't file your taxes. Yeah, so then you can't have access to A, B, or C, because then when you try to go healthcare, if you get pulled over and your license is expired, or it's got something on it that's going to get you in more trouble. This is the same thing as like when you used to not pay for your license sticker and you'd get a ticket. I believe they're going to start connecting all these dots. If you don't have your digital ID, this is what this looks like. And then if you don't start towing the line, here are the ramifications. And then what happens? And I think we've both done probably relatively extensive work on this, is you turn into China. Mm-hmm. You have a social credit system. And then everything is just about, and my least favorite one is going to be the speeding, because we live a little outside the city, so we don't have to suffer from the 30-kilometer-an-hour zones with all the speed cameras. And I know Doug Ford says he's getting rid of them, and I think that's going to be a dogfight because of the amount of revenue that they're generating. But you're going to be driving, and you're going to be going 45 because you just came out of a 40 zone into a 30, and then bing, you're going to get hit. It's going to go, oh, that money just came out of your account.
Yeah, and
it's just going to, like, I saw this really like. Someone did, I wasn't a spoof because it was serious.
It's efficient. We're not even making you have to pay your fine.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll just take it.
But they just start, it's kind of like that movie with Justin Timberlake, where you're running out of time, but it's going to be just this tightening noose on your finances and your life and everything. And it's all going to be convenience. It's all going to be this hook of convenience. But what's going to happen is this. You're going to have two kinds of people. Well, probably three. You're going to have the people in the middle that are just like, God, shoot me. I can't believe I have to deal with this, but they're going to comply. Then you're going to have the other people on the other end, like us, that are going to push back very, very strongly or just not be in the country. And then you're going to have the other people that are going to be your typical, I've kind of been a loser my whole life, but now I have the opportunity for authority.
Yeah.
And they're going to be the same people that were yelling at you through COVID, put on your fucking mask, and telling you to get vaccinated, you're going to kill grandma. Those people are going to love this, right? Because they're going to appeal to the same group of losers. And then they're going to say, you have authority to rat on your neighbor, and I'll give you points for it. That's where this goes, right? This goes to the reward center.
I love the Michael Malice quote about this, where he says, low value individuals would love a social credit system because obedience is the only metric they can compete on.
Correct.
And I'm like, yeah, 100%.
And what would you say, like, I don't mean to pick on society at scale.
I do.
But what percentage of people do you think fall into that category? I think it's between 20 and 30%.
Yeah. I think that completely fits the number of just like mentally ill people in society. I think it's around 20 to 30%.
But it's also not just mentally ill. It's also people that were losers in high school. It's people that have had, like, people develop psychological issues for a myriad of reasons across the spectrum of things. And I think that can come into play in how you sort of see the world. Mainly liberals. To be honest. A lot of like your hardcore liberals sort of fit that bill. What I mean to say is some of them will be mentally ill, but not all of them will be necessarily mentally ill. Some of them will have just been losers or beta males or whatever the hell it is that just want to have some kind of authority, and they just want to try to be important in their own way. So they're going to champion this whole government, crackdown, and they're going to rat on everybody because they suck. So this is where I think it's going. Yeah, it's a little dark. Sure, I just jumped 5 steps ahead, but hey, this is where it lands. And for people that argue, there are other countries that are already doing the same thing. Like I say, look at China. Go look at the UK though. The UK is a democracy, quote unquote. So they're already going this direction. You already see what's happening. So yeah, maybe we land somewhere in the middle between China and the UK, but either way, it sucks.
Well, to me, it's hilarious at this point to even call these nations democratic in the sense where, okay, let's just, thought experiment. You have 10 different democratic countries all around the world with different historical cultures, different climates, different industries, different people. And what's the odds that all 10 of those nations, if their governments were representing the will of the people, they would all be implementing the same policy at the same time? You'd think, that doesn't seem likely. So yeah, I think at this point you can definitely see that this is a more global push. I mean,
for sure.
You're already seeing this with even when it comes to Canada. We've already got the World Economic Forum's digital traveler identity program or whatever operating in our.
You've got the UN and the World Economic Forum that are really that are sort of championing this, and you've got these nations using those organizations. What's interesting and annoying is that you have countries like Canada, who are the people the specific country that was championing these things came from Canada. Like Melanie Jolie was one of the ones that was actually promoting this. We put it together. We were one of the nations that did this. So the nations that are part of the UN and the World Economic Forum and the people that are part of these organizations are on our level in our nation. They go pitch these ideas up. Everyone agrees on them. Then they blame the larger organization for having to distribute it down. But it's just this yo-yo effect. We're the ones that are creating these things, then using the smokescreen of the global organizations to then apply this stuff at scale. It's dark, man.
Well, yeah, I think it goes both ways too, because a lot of the people in these, I did a video on this a while ago actually about when it comes to these programs and stuff, like let's say Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals, which is the exact same thing as World Economic Forum's Great Reset Plan. They've signed a strategic partnership to implement the two. Is that you look at it and you go, okay, if these politicians are trying to climb a career ladder or looking out for themselves, they want the next job, the next promotion, the next pay increase, the more status as well. That's a big one for them. Then what you're going to see is them try to bolster their resume. So if they want to go work at the UN, where they have a larger stage, more seemingly more authority and more what would you call it? Prestige, then you would implement their policies in order to go to them when you want to hire a job and go, look, see what I've already done. I've already been so good for your organization, just like you would for a business. Like you'd say, let's say you wanted a job with a marketing company for Lululemon. You could go to them and go, hey, look at what I did at my local gym. I got everybody signed up and they're all wearing Lululemon at my gym now.
Or like if you worked for the FDA and wanted a job with Pfizer.
Yeah, exactly. And so that exact same principle is playing out here. But yeah, I mean, it is scary to think about where this lands. If a system that vast was implemented when the pandemic was going on and all of the mandates and stuff. Like, can you imagine? Okay, your health data is now linked to your benefits, and so, or your travel. So it's now no longer you can Photoshop a vaccine passport. It's
not that any of us ever did that.
No, I would never. It's that, when you don't get your vaccine, your digital ID require.
You can't travel,
right?
You're
and then all of a sudden it's just shut off.
Yeah.
And you can't get your benefits until you get this shot.
Yes, and they start doing this to kids and all this other stuff, and you're seeing a lot of people push back. Yeah, it's very, very dangerous. But I agree. I think that's a good way of looking at it. It's just everybody looking again for more power and more profit over the people. Hey, listeners, quick question: are you tired of seeing your local coffee spots swallowed up by the big chains? Are you frustrated that even the big chains you loved have lost their Canadian roots? Well, there's a way to take action and make a little cash while you're at it. Resistance Coffee Co. is building a network of local outposts. These are people in communities across Canada who help share great coffee, get free shipping, free coffee, and make some cash for their efforts. Joining is simple. Head over to resistancecoffee.com, click Buy Local, and then find an outpost. If there's no outpost in your area, they'll reach out to you to get set up. And make sure to click the box that says Blendr referred me, and you'll get an extra bag of coffee when you sign up. It's your chance to support Canadian coffee, help your community, and earn a little independence while you do it. Go check it out today.
All right, last story for the day. The cult of denial that keeps Canada broken. Many of us ask how any self-respecting Canadian can still support the Liberal Party despite years of rising costs, failing institutions, and corruption. The uncomfortable answer: self-respecting people are rare. After a decade of propaganda that equated patriotism with bigotry and dissent with hate, many Canadians have been psychologically conditioned to defend the very leaders who betrayed them. It's cognitive dissonance on a national scale. Admitting they were wrong would mean facing that they vilified friends, family, and fellow citizens as fascists or far right for simply disagreeing. Rather than confront that guilt, they doubled down. The same pattern drives unwavering loyalty to failed ideologies like gender radicalism. To admit harm would shatter the illusion of moral righteousness. This isn't innate madness, it's learned submission, cultivated through media, schools, and social pressure. Until Canadians reclaim truth and self-respect, they'll remain trapped in denial, defending their captors while calling it virtue. So is Canada suffering from a form of mass cognitive dissonance?
Yeah, it's just this big whole Stockholm syndrome situation. Yeah, it's kind of where we're at. It's interesting. I think the foundation of this happened many years ago. I was actually doing something in the science section the other day, and it struck me as odd. And they were talking about the division within society. And it started back in I think they were saying that they really targeted like the 2008 to 2010 area. And what was interesting is they said, what happened that we can identify, and this was like really non-political science, is people's friend groups expanded. So when you went from having one or two close friends you spent most of your time with to 4, 5, 6, and 7, they said this is when you started seeing a big shift in division. It sort of is like a mini mob mentality. So you and I will have our ideas, and you and I talk a lot, so people get to hear them and either agree or disagree, whatever it may be. But if there were 6 of us and we were traveling around in a group, there's more power in that. So then you start trying to force your ideas on others. You create more division because you'll also create a stronger mob mentality. And they said that this was put on steroids through the social media era. So this all kind of started happening in like the 2008 to 2010. And I know people have been associated with their political sides for a very long time. You've always had extremists. But I started thinking about that. And then I go, that is when this started happening. And then in early 2010s, you started having all the uprisings in the Middle East through social media, Arab Spring, you had the Euromaidan in 2014. And these are all tools. And I understand the CIA was involved, but that's kind of my point, is the larger organizations recognized the tools that they had at their disposal. Expanded friend groups, larger division, and social media, which put this whole thing on steroids. It magnified it to a level we've never seen before in history. So you've got the CIA, which means government organizations, which now they're all starting to pick this up. So by like the mid-2010s, basically all developed world, all first world nations and their governments understand the power of what's going on. And backdoor power and profit over the people. How do you maintain power? Well, you need to get your constituents to be so dedicated to your cause that they'll do anything to support you. So there's a couple things that kind of happen there. So one thing is, we always know the media has been kind of a fourth arm of the government. Well, they really solidified that. We see that a lot in Canada. If 85% of our mainstream media organizations, and now a significant portion of independents, us not included, are funded by the government, they own the megaphone. So that's a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're constantly fighting back against social media to squash guys like us that don't agree with them. And we saw this through COVID when they were promoting the get your vaccine. But then if you asked a question about the vaccine, it's like, kill that person.
Right.
And that was kind of where it went. It's kind of crazy, right? So they had to get control and power over this because they understood what it was. So now these are the tools they have in the mid 2010s rather. Everybody's divided. So then they start, in my opinion, you start seeing these first world nations and these governments, they start finding a way to make people more and then maybe like deeply over associate with their political cause. And this is what you saw happen through that era. And you've talked about these different things where safe spaces, then they start censoring people, then they start doing all these different things to sort of expand their power. And then what they start doing is they start expanding the size of government, which we saw significantly in Canada, growing the federal workforce by over 40% under Trudeau from 2015 to 2025. The reason that's important is now when government touches everything, there's nothing that is in your life that is not affected by left or right-wing politics. So now you become even more deeply entrenched, and now you become even more associated with your party. So this is what they did. This is what governments have done, and it all kind of started. And I know again, it really got amped up 2008 to 2010, and we are where we are now. So now you've got this game they played on society over the last 15 to 20 years, where they've created more division and a much stronger identification with your political party, and people won't break their identity. They won't. And again, that saying, it's easier to fool people than to convince people they've been fooled. Mark Twain?
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of, you put all this together and you go, oh, they've created the perfect environment so that people will do anything to continue supporting their political ideology. That's where we are today, and that's why you're seeing this Stockholm syndrome come to life.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that right around that time that you're talking about is when you see the identity politics start skyrocketing. So words like racism, sexism, misogyny,
more division,
homophobia, all this started to take off in 2012. And actually, there's a very interesting theory that this was the power centers recognizing that for the first time in 2008, the left and the right were starting to converge against them after the financial crisis, where they saw that, the left had the Occupy Wall Street movement, the right had the Tea Party, and all of this kind of stuff was starting to gain control or gain favor, not actual control, but
momentum.
Yeah. And so if you look at that, you go, if you're the elites of society and you say, both groups below us are starting to turn on us, then you just have to turn them against each other.
Yes.
And actually, that's exactly what's happened in a large sense too, and I actually completely understand it. Like, let's say you have an elite group and you have identity group A and identity group B. Now you can put whatever splits you want in A and B, whether it be men and women, gay and straight, white and black, all of this kind of stuff. And you go, all right, we're in the elite circle, so we have control over the tax codes and the media and all of this kind of stuff. And so we're going to take from group A and give to group B, which they've done in a very literal way, especially through tax programs and all of this kind of stuff.
Programs, everything else that's created, which creates resentment and division.
And then, so yeah, of course, and people will go, well, there shouldn't be as much hatred. And you go, hey, until identity group B says, we do not want you, the elites, to take from identity group A to give to us, then I'm sorry. At that point, unless you're willing to say that, then the frustration is kind of valid. If you're egging on an authority figure to take all their shit to give, then I get it.
Yes.
But so that is 100% what's been fracturing society. But there was actually a really interesting study done by the British Journal of Social Psychology that found the left is less diverse in thought than the political right. And I actually think from an experience wise, everybody has been able to tell that over the last 10, 15 years. Been
Yes,
like
very much, especially today. The last few years, it's been very prevalent.
Right. On the left, you've got the party line, whatever the party
You're with
says.
us or you're against
Yeah.
us. And if you're against us, we will eat you. And they'll eat their own.
And actually, you're seeing it right now. There's a very big kind of inter-narrative war on the right as to whether they're going to take a really hard nationalist stance. You know, you're seeing guys like Nick Fuentes and stuff gain a lot more momentum. Obviously, you know, coming on Tucker and stuff now, and you're kind of seeing that wing. It really is kind of like, okay, is it going to be the Tucker, the Nick Fuenteses, the Candace Owens, the that are driving the conservative movement? Are they going to be the thought leaders, or is it going to be your old guard of the Ben Shapiro's of the world and so on? And that's, you're kind of seeing this like inter-civil war in the right-wing movement at the moment.
It's interesting. I feel like Kirk was sort of a balance between them all.
For sure.
Yeah.
And actually that you could look at that as a power vacuum that's now been filled.
Yes.
Or is trying to be filled.
Yeah. It created party division.
But in this, this study that the British Psychological Society did, I thought it was really interesting because I think this actually dives down into the basis of the ideologies. So if you think about, you know, the left, their prized value, their number one value is equality, and equity, right? Now, I understand that there's a difference between those two things, but in their mind, they just see them as like, we want the world to be the same. Everybody have the same stuff. That's how they view it. Those terms are interchangeable to them. But if that's your guiding principle, then you are actually hostile to the very concept of truth in the first place, because truth creates a hierarchy.
Yes.
If certain things are true, then some things are more true than others. And then you have to battle it out. And this is kind of what the right does, is because they are more orderly in a sense. You could think about the right as representing masculinity as order. You could think about the left representing more femininity and chaos, and equality, because equality is chaos. There's no structure, right? Everything's the same. Then they're actually just psychologically less willing to admit differences at all. And so I think this is largely driving that kind of cult of delusion that we're seeing when it comes to, say, Canada. If the vast majority of Canada leans left, which they do, like our Conservative Party is, you know, I got shit for this when I said it one time, but how I think our Conservative Party is more left than the Democrats in America.
United States, yeah.
In the sense, so it's like we don't really have a true right wing.
No.
It's actually even funny if you look at the conservative name, right? Like progressive conservative. Like those two things are oxymorons. Like those things
in the political sphere, yes.
Right. And so we don't really have a true opposition. But okay, if the nation is widely on board with this idea of socialism and equality, and this is where their mind goes, then yeah, it completely makes sense as to why we would see this level of cognitive dissonance when there's not really actually even that much value placed on truth. And so I think you're definitely seeing the consequences of that.
Yay, Canada.
that being said, I do actually, and I've been coming around to this more and more, is like, look, I don't think Canada has the will. I think also the reason, you know, people will say, oh, well, we're just sitting around talking about it. It's time to actually do something. Sorry, there's not enough of a will in Canada to do anything.
We're a very apathetic nation.
Right.
Yeah, I think the thing is, most times when people say that, they think about physical mobilization.
Yeah.
You got to understand the game you're playing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we're going to physically mobilize and, you know, guns and this and that. It's like, okay, well, if you're playing football, though, you don't bring a gun.
Right.
You play by the rules of the game. And the thing is, there's a governing body that enforces the rules and referees, and that's how it works. But somebody wins. That's kind of politics. That's kind of how a country's run. And people can not like that. And I'm okay with not liking it. I don't like how our system works either. But as individuals, and even as larger groups, if you want to make these kinds of changes in the first world, that you can't, violence and uprising and revolution, and that's not where this is at. You have to mobilize understanding how the game is played. You have to play by the rules. And like I say all the time, if you want your institutions to work, you have to work for your institutions. You have to get involved in a different way. And I just don't think a lot of people have the patience or the interest in that. I personally don't have the patience or the interest. But I don't have the patience or interest because I feel like even if I got into the position I wanted to, I would still be handcuffed. So what's the solution to that? You actually need a much larger mobilization first at a foundational level so that you have people within the institutions that will then enforce the things that I'm trying to get done.
I don't see those things as mutually exclusive, because you are working for the institutions in a sense where media is a extremely important institution in society. And this is why I've put my focus here, because, you know, before starting to do this, I didn't use social media. I had no real interest in that side of things. But it's because I recognized that, okay, yeah, you can't change the course that we're on unless people accurately understand it. And like, at this point, you know, I talk about narratives a lot, or controlling the narrative or driving the narrative. It's like narrative is indispensable from perceived reality. So if all of Canada is in this cult of denial and, you know, in a perceived reality that is actually entirely false and delusional, then yeah, you can't change anything. And so that needs to be the first domino to fall.
Right. So what I'm saying is I agree with what you're saying, but my point is, okay, let's say you and I spend our time in the media space, and that's an institution, so that's important, but we are stifled in our reach.
Right.
So when you think about how, you know, you and I could expand our reach, well, that's get rid of, you know, the new Bill C8, the new Bill C9. Don't let Bill C36 pass. Get rid of Bill C18. Get rid of the Online News Act, the Online Streaming Act. Someone in those positions that would get rid of these things would then allow us to amplify our voices. Having people that worked within, say, this I don't think is exactly it, but I'll just use this as an example. You know, Instagram and Facebook, so Meta are blocking news. Having people that can help us navigate those things so that wasn't how it was applied within those social media platforms. So those would give us the opportunity to expand our reach. So the amount that you and I talk and the length of time we've been doing this, if we were in America, our following would be 5-10 million people, I would imagine. I'm just guessing, I don't know. But that's what I think it would be. So it's significantly less here. It's significantly less. It's like 500,000. It's a little over 500,000 here. Now, if those tools were not put in our way and they were removed, I think we could grow rapidly in this country and we could start changing the narrative at a larger scale. I think we could reach more people because I think we're pretty rational in how we explain these things. And I think that's important to actually get through to people. Don't be too extreme. I think that's how you lose a lot of people in conversation before it even starts. So what I'm saying is, if there were people within those institutions that could clear the way for us, you and I could accomplish a lot more. And that's what I mean when I go, well, let's say I was, say, for fun, let's just say you're the prime minister right now, right? I don't think there's enough people working within the institutions to help us actually employ the things we would want to. And a good example would be the education system. It's ruled by liberals. So if you and I were like, okay, here's what is important to get done within the education system to correct course, because that's the foundation of where society, that's kind of how you change its trajectory, right? So if not enough people are working within the educational institution, it wouldn't matter if I was the prime minister, because whatever I said wouldn't be applied at this level anyway. So that's kind of what I'm saying is you can try to employ these things, but because it's run by a group of liberals, it wouldn't shake loose. Or to my point, maybe you'd make some change like you and I make in media, but if there were a lot of people that saw the world the same way as us in the educational system, that'd be like everybody clearing out all these bills out of our way. Now our media reach can expand significantly. Well, now my reach as a prime minister in this role of trying to get the education system reworked would actually happen. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. I think the big dependent there would be whether you've got a majority or a minority, because if you've got a majority, if you're a majority house and you're the prime minister, then I think you could actually enact some pretty crazy legislation. Not like crazy in the sense where it's offside, but crazy in the sense where it's to the moment, it's what's needed. Because that would be it would piss a lot of people off. You'd piss that 20 to 30% of society off and get them really mad. But if you were just to like completely legislate out
those
DEI,
people will be trying to kill me because words are violence.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you know,
in this scenario, come at me, bro. All right, cool.
I'm more and more, I'm not on board with it. I don't like the idea of mass violence at all. I don't like revolutions, but at this point, I see it one of two ways. Either the establishment is going to lose power and they are going to do everything they can in order to maintain their control on it, including the use of force, or you're going to see them continue to go down this path, and then you're going to see violence coming from the other side of essentially revolt from the bottom. And so I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's coming, and I don't want it to, but hey, what I want isn't very important in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, I think definitely the media is the first thing that needs to break when it comes to getting rid of this cult of denial within Canada. But anything else you wanted to add today?
No, let's leave everybody on a terrible note today.
Hey, it's where we're at. It's the cards we were dealt.
Yeah.
All right. Don't forget to head over to our Substack where you can sign up for our newsletter, which goes out 5 days a week. That's blendrnews.com, BLENDR news.com. You can find all the sources for the show in there. And if you would like to support the show, you can also sign up for a paid subscription, which is greatly appreciated. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.